Greetings here. It is OTA time. There is a patch and an OTA that just went live, and I'm going to cover every single card that got changed, how it might affect the meta, and why the dev team might have made these choices. I used to do these a lot in the past, and moving forward, I'm going to be doing them every time. So if you enjoy hearing my thoughts on the different cards and what might shake up the meta, make sure to tune in every time an OTA drops. So let's get it started with the OTA. Hey folks, we have the Grand Arena right around the corner, releasing a week from today, and we're excited to see what everyone thinks. For today, we're going to be making some small downward adjustments to some top meta contenders. Starting with Zabu. Zabu is going from a 1-2 to a 1-1. Longtime players might be surprised to see Zabu warrant further adjustment. Continues to be a tricky card to balance, and today we're making a small note to his power. This is somewhat a continuation of the discussion of the last OTA, keeping an eye on the presence of how these mid-range decks utilize a boatload of tech cards. Play rate of cards like Shang-Chi, Enchantress, and others continues to be quite high. We understand the importance of animal counter play, and Zabu is a critical component of these mid-range decks. But yeah, I think that the general thing that they're kind of going with here is that things are getting a bit homogenized, and they have for a while, especially with the new Mr. Fantastic coming out. Just playing Zabu, Surge, Mr. Fantastic, and like 4 drops is a way that you can set up just about every single deck. I use it as kind of a bracket. You know, the way I look at Zabu is that anytime I kind of want at least 2 4-drops, I'm almost always just going to throw Zabu in and another 4-drop. I usually use 3 as kind of like my breaking point of when Zabu's worth it. So having Zabu not be a 1-2 and not have full stats and actually be a 1-1, I think is going to be pretty impactful for that deck making decision. 1 point of power, a lot of people usually scoff at. But what I always think is, like, imagine all the times that you've lost and just had a single power would have gotten you there. After this change, that might be different. So I think that 1 power is a lot more impactful in a game like Marvel Snap, where the turn sizes are very limited, and the amount of cards that you actually get down on the board are very limited. So I think that 1 power nerfs are actually surprisingly changing for how a deck can actually perform. And going down to a 1-1 is really hard. There's not many 1-1s that have seen consistent competitive play that don't actually scale on their own. The only one I can really think of is the original Spider Ham that was a 1-1 that hit a 6-cost card, or the highest cost card in your opponent's hand, that just kind of ruined their day. So seeing Zabu be a 1-1 is really interesting. One big impact that a lot of people might not talk about is that running Killmonger now in your Zabu decks makes a lot more sense. When it's a 1-2, and especially if you had like even one other 1-drop in there, you'd never want to run Killmonger. But now it might encourage these decks to be much more likely to run Killmonger and just Zabu as their 1-drop and not worry about killing that 1-1. Maybe even being excited to kill off that 1-1 if you play it not on the final turn. So really interesting. I think that Zabu's play rate will go down, and in turn, just throwing 3 or 4 4-drops is going to be less likely. Maybe you're just going to more gear towards what you actually want as opposed to putting the Zabu in. So it should be a really nice meta shakeup. I don't think a lot of people are going to look at this and think it'll really matter. I think that going from a 1-2 to a 1-1 is pretty darn important, and Zabu is going to see a pretty big jump down in play rate. Next one is going to be Bullseye, going from a 3-3 to a 3-2. Popularity and success of this card has waxed and waned over the last few months, but one thing has remained consistent. The strongest versions of the deck feature Bullseye, and the frequency at which Bullseye shows up is something that we're sensitive to given its interaction with Swarm. Few issues here, most notably the Swarm Bullseye interaction can be difficult to track because it's just like the system's in play, and it creates the fast forward segment. Trade-off here has been making the game slow down considerably and not giving players a strong understanding of what took place during the turns. There's always that give and take. People hate fast forward. People hate how it works. I understand it's probably just a weird dev thing about how it triggers or when it triggers. But yeah, it is very frustrating sometimes when you just don't know how many cards your opponent has, how many swarms they have. It's really hard to calculate the final turns. We could give an adjustment to Swarm, but we feel a satisfying rework would keep the card's identity intact, and ultimately there's a cool and unique element to comboing off with Bullseye, just something we don't want to happen too frequently. So right now they're just going to lower the power a little bit and then maybe try to adjust things in the future. This is a surprising one. Bullseye is a card that, you know, given, like, let's say we were talking a month and a half ago, a lot of people would look at this and be like, yeah, of course Bullseye's getting nerfed. Bullseye's been crazy for so long. But Bullseye is not that strong right now. And like discard in general is just not really all that strong. So this is kind of surprising. I hate it because Necro Bouncer, which is my favorite deck in the game, utilizes Bullseye, and that's going to take a nerf, which sucks, but you know, it's going to happen. I don't think it affects the deck too terribly much, but 1 power is always important. Again, kind of surprising here. I think that this is probably something that's been in the works for a while, and it doesn't make as much sense right now with the last couple of cards. Maybe if this was last OTA, it would make a little bit more sense, but now it's kind of weird. I think it does bring Bullseye into a fine power level. I don't think people are going to miss it so much. Any deck that was going to run Bullseye is still going to. Is a very unique and powerful effect, but it's going to bring down the power level a little bit. Hopefully it doesn't hurt discard too much, and maybe in the back end, Bullseye just has a much higher play rate and win rate and cube rate than we know from the stats that we can see. So I guess we'll see. Moving on, we have Negasonic Teenage Warhead not hitting spells anymore. This is huge. I feel like there was a huge problem that happened when spells came in, and there were so many cards that like affect spells that really shouldn't. It doesn't make sense. Like, they changed a lot of locations now so that doesn't happen, and now it looks like they're going through and trying to make the changes to different cards. I love that they're doing this. I wish they were a bit more proactive with this when spells came into the game. There's still some very frustrating interactions that haven't been touched. You know, yesterday I lost to Dracula discarding a spell that my opponent had played on the location that gives it into my hand, and I just lost the game. I needed 1 point of power, and instead I hit their spell. So there's still some frustrating interactions, but the more of these they can get rid of, the better, as they're trying to flesh out the game and add more really cool things. Negasonic Teenage Warhead was feeling really bad anytime Merlin was popular in the meta, because you just couldn't play it early. Otherwise, they just play a spell on top of it, and you get absolutely nothing out of your 3/3. So this change is really big. You should see a huge influx in Negasonic Teenage Warhead. It actually makes her significantly stronger. So be on the lookout. Play around Negasonic. I know it's hard, but go for it. And the next one is my favorite thing that they've done in so long. Mirage going from a 2/2 to a 2/3 and doesn't hit spells anymore. A massive buff to what I consider to be one of the most underrated cards in the game in Mirage. Now a fully statted 2/3, you still get the lowest cost card, you guarantee that it's a character, and you give it +2 power. No more random Merlin spells that you don't want, you don't get the extra power, no more Dormammu spell or anything like that. Mirage is back, and I really think this card is crazy. I think that this card makes it better than like Iron Patriot, maybe not pre-nerf Iron Patriot, but definitely the Iron Patriot that you have right now. Probably makes it better than Kate Bishop in a lot of different metas. Some decks really want the power of what Kate Bishop does. But why Mirage is so powerful is that getting small, powerful resources is so good in Marvel Snap. I used to think about this with like old Maria Hill. That was a 2/3 that gave you a 1-drop. I really liked that card when a lot of people just kind of got rid of it. The way I think about it is that I think about how many times in Marvel Snap I have 1 or 2 energy float. And if you get a cheap resource in your hand that you can fill out that energy curve, it's going to boost you and boost you and boost you. And I'm so excited for this Mirage change. I'm going to play so many decks with her. I think that she's going to be an absolute powerhouse. I'm stoked. I'm friggin' stoked about Mirage. Mirage in every deck. Mirage will no longer be able to target skills in your opponent's head. Naturally eliminates the ability to give power, creating a very unsatisfying experience. Simultaneously, we're buffing Mirage. We believe this is both a fun amount of variance to pop up the game and gives more options for various synergies like Victoria Hand. I think she can go in just about anything. She's obviously already really good in Victoria Hand decks where you want to get cheap things that can get buffed up by Victoria Hand. But boy, oh boy, I really like that they're buffing other 2-drops. If they're not going to, you know, nerf things like Surge that are so homogenous in the 2-drop slot, buff up other 2-drops to be that powerful. I'm cool with that, and Mirage is now going to be competing for that spot. I think many players won't see it that way. I'm going to be putting Mirage in so many decks, and I hope you're excited to see it. The Thing going from a 4/6 to a 4/7. It's a fantastic 4th season, so not give the original a little love. This is an acknowledgement that our vanilla characters have long fallen behind, but more so it's a buff to High Evolutionary. The Thing has fallen behind as an option on those decks. We'll keep reevaluating starter cards as the time we discuss. This is a nothing burger. I don't think the Thing is still good. You could just run Laufey, you could just run Man-Thing. There's just so many better options for a high Evo deck at this point than a 4/7 Thing that hits like 3 cards for -1. There's just so many better 4-drops that you can utilize in Thing. I don't think this extra power puts it in contention. I guess we'll see. I do like that they've acknowledged that the vanilla cards are a little bit lagging behind as more and more cards come out with kind of upsides, or at least mostly upsides, that are just at higher stats than the vanilla cards. So hopefully they'll continue to adjust this. I would love to see Cyclops go up to a 3-5. I don't know if like Shocker needs to go up, but maybe Shocker, like the high evo version, they can actually improve it. I think you can give Shocker a -2 cost and just, I don't know, see. It could be fun. But yeah, I think the thing is a nothing burger, but good that they're acknowledging some things. Marvel Boy, this one is crazy. Marvel Boy going to 3-2. Marvel Boy was already just this really powerful card that almost only sees play in Zoo because like it has really, really good synergy with Squirrel Girl, and you want to play a bunch of like 1-drops out to just get them out. As a 3-2, this is really, really strong. Obviously, like, you know, 1-drops get killed by Killmonger, and that's still always going to be a pretty frequent card that you have to deal with in the meta. So Zoo decks would really like this because they sometimes run Kyera to counter that. But Marvel Boy going to 3-2, even if you're just hitting like 1 card, you can kind of get back to base stats. If you're hitting 2 cards, it gets way higher. So I think Marvel Boy might start to see a little bit of consideration in other things. I actually had amazing success with Marvel Boy in a Bass deck, where you'd be able to get it up to a 3-3 and you're already playing a couple of 1-drops that had Clea in it, so you could just get a bunch of spells as well. I think Marvel Boy is going to maybe be considered in some decks that aren't Zoo, because now it's much closer to base stats, and getting it to the point where it's relevant with that extra power buff is a bit easier. You do lose Ravonna synergy, and obviously Bass just makes the card the same, but really, really cool change. I think that Marvel Boy is an interesting and unique card, and I'm excited to see where it goes. Jennifer Kale, another one I'm so excited about. Jennifer Kale going from 2-2 to 2-3. Used to be Psylocke, but activate. Now it's Psylocke +1 power, but activate. Really, really cool. I love Jennifer Kale. If you've seen, I've been playing her in a lot of decks. I love her in Super Giant. I love her in any combo-centric deck where you're trying to get additional energy on specific turns. Now her being a 2-3, another really interesting card. I think they're doing this because like Herbie kind of fights her for that same thing, because Herbie can get that activate where you get +2 energy, which is pretty crazy, but you can't time it out for certain turns. I think that a lot more decks are going to be interested in Jennifer Kale now that she's not understated. The next one is Green Goblin, which is really interesting. Going from a -3 to 3 -4. So it actually got nerfed. It lost a power, right? But Green Goblin has kind of fallen out of favor, given that 3 power is just not that particularly strong for 3 energy anymore. This is interesting. You know, Green Goblin is kind of this niche little card that you can throw out. It's obviously pretty good in Clog, and you know, obviously things like Galactus really like to see something like Green Goblin. So giving it that extra power can be pretty significant for getting those lanes as low as you need them to go. And it's just a really nice clogging tool. You know, you pay 3 energy, but you don't actually get a board spot, and you get that 4 power, and you actually remove a board spot from your opponent. So that's something I always think about with Green Goblin, right? Like if you play a 3-4, you lose a board spot to get a 3-4. And then if you're playing a Green Goblin, you're not losing a board spot and you're taking one away from your opponent. So it's kind of like double the importance, if that makes sense, because you're not losing a board spot and your opponent is, as opposed to just you losing one. So you kind of like gain 2 board spots when you think about that compared to your opponent. So at 3 -4, it's going to be considered in a lot more decks than it was at 3 -3. I'm excited to try it out and see if we can surprise some people with it. Doom 2099 going from 4-3 to 4-4. I don't love this. The Doombots are still 0 power, and they just feel so much less impactful than they were when this card was initially released. I really think that's the impact and why it's not playing. Now being a 4-4, maybe it's a little bit better. You know, maybe you want to run it into kind of like a Fantastic card deck where you're playing end of turn cards, and you know, you play Doom 2099, you play Fantastic card, you play another end of turn card, you get a bunch of things out. I'm not sure if it's actually going to see any real level of impact going up to 4-4. I really think they need to raise the power level of the tokens that come out, because if you're getting 3 of them, you know, the tokens only get up to what, like a 4-2. It just doesn't really seem impactful enough. So there has been some success with people using Astral Projection to use like some on reveals multiple times, and I'm interested in seeing if that would actually work. But really, really cool that they're at least trying to buff this card. A lot of people are upset about this because this card was very powerful. They nerfed it to oblivion, and then the power level just made it so it's completely irrelevant. I think if you fully reverted Doom 2099, it wouldn't be a problem. I hope they make a try and just do that if they see that this doesn't have any impact, which is interesting. They're saying they're a little nervous about it. I don't know. I'm kind of surprised. You know, the Doom 2099 was so powerful when it came out, but we're playing a different game of Marvel Snap right now. It's just different than it was back then. So that's all for the changes. You know, I know that people were probably looking for some bigger impact things, maybe seeing some changes to cards like Surge that is just so prevalent right now. I think that the reason they don't really like or they're not super interested in nerfing Surge is just because people love Surge. Like, if you play Surge, you know, like Surge is just such a fun card to play, and you kind of stack things out and play things in a row. So even though it's so popular, I don't think the stats are crazy high. And there's obviously now Mr. Fantastic that's competing for that spot. So I don't mind like not seeing things that have super high play rates like Surge go down. And I don't think the meta needed that many changes. I think some people think it's a little bit stale, but in general, I've been having so much fun playing Marvel Snap lately. I don't think too many big changes are different. But what am I most excited about? It's absolutely Mirage. I think Mirage is going to be such a fun card. I think you're going to be seeing a lot more of it. And I just think it's such a cool card to get access to one of your opponent's small cards, make it stronger, and be able to burst out at the end of the game. And then there's also patch notes. So with the patches, there's a couple things that we are going to be looking at here. So with patch notes, there are card shop updates. So there's going to be like featured sets now and packs of different variants that you can get. They're trying to provide more ways to utilize tokens. A lot of people who are like whales in the game just have huge influxes of tokens and really nothing to spend it on. So this is a way that you can spend those tokens to get interesting things. I think that they're going to have variants from like spotlight caches and all these different things in there, which is really good. Bonus card protection is awesome. So seeing bonus card protection here, I think is really, really cool. So basically in the goodie drops table, I've been incredibly fortunate with the goodie drops for packs. I've gotten 3 high rolls where I got 5,000 tokens. So I'm definitely really jaded on the system because of that. And I try and acknowledge it as much as I can. But having this drop or the protection is always really good. I love when games do this. Just basically saying, hey, we know you get unlucky, but if you get unlucky to a certain extent, you just get it anyway. So I think I need a little bit more clarity than what they provide here to know exactly how good this is going to be. But anytime there's protection and stuff like that is a very, very good thing for consumers. So awesome that they added that. Booster matching, I think, is a cool idea. So they're making it so that when you pull a card from a snap pack and you get boosters, those are always going to match that card. So you can try and upgrade it as fast as you can. I think that was a really nice little improvement. And then improving red pips. Jesus, dude, I hate the red pips. The red pips ruin my life. I click them. I realize I can't actually accept it. The red pip stays there. I have ADD. 2 minutes later, I go and click the exact same pip again without even thinking about it because my mind goes on it. Get rid of the friggin' red pips. Get them out of here. It's awesome. Hopefully it actually works and they're not lying. I hate the red pips. Sorry for scribbling all over the page. I'm just going to do it more. So gameplay, another thing is that we have Grand Arena coming July 24th to the 7th. It's a brand new mode where you can take a champion card and you can use pre-created decks, which I think is really cool. They're going to be creating new and different cards and new and different skills that are only for this mode. Whether or not this mode is amazing, I'm really excited to try it. I do think it's going to be pretty good. I know they've been working on this for a while. This is a good step in a good direction for these limited time modes. Something that's different, unique. And then the pre-constructed decks, what's really cool is for a new player, you're not going to jump in and feel like you're completely behind, because even if you don't have all the cards, you're going to get this pre-constructed deck that you are able to play, and you're going to play with new, different cards and mechanics. One thing I will say that's definitely going to be buggy, I mean, the normal cards that they get in the game are buggy. I'm sure there's going to be some crazy bugs with some of these cards, but I love that they're being, experimental and trying something new here. I know people have some limited time game mode fatigue from last month, but I am open to this, and I am really, really excited to see what happens. And this comes out next week. And then there's bug fixes down here. I just highlighted the ones beforehand of ones that I think are important. So what is the cards overlapping and obscuring the rightmost card that happens sometimes? I don't know why. But apparently they fixed that, which is great, because it was always annoying. You'd have to like click the card a bunch of times and try and move it around. And then an edge case where face down cards are momentarily visible. There's some weird things that like happen with the cards flipping on the board. So good to see, get rid of that. And then there was one more down here. Background music should play properly in game now. There's been some weird things with how the background music track is on versus the sound effects track, and sometimes they like overlap in weird ways. So hopefully this works that out. But that's it. I hope that you guys enjoyed me talking about this. Like I said, I'm going to be doing this every single time a new OTA comes out. So if you like hearing my thoughts on it right when they come out, please tune in. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one.
Binks. I hope you like the vibe. Binks. Like and subscribe. Binks. I hope you like the vibe. Binks. Like and subscribe.